Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the second CD Republican Hopefuls Take Debate stage. Let's begin. Republicans to square off in week's fourth Granite State debate. The Republicans competing in the primary for the U.S. House seat to represent New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District will debate on Friday night. The debate will be held at New Hampshire Institute of Politics and St. Anselm College. The debate can be seen live on WMUR and in the video player at the top of this article on WMUR.com and inside the WMUR mobile app. And it will begin at 7 p.m. Here's a look at all of the candidates. As you can see, these are all the candidates running. Now we're going to meet each candidate one by one. Meet Brian Belcher, candidate for 2nd CD seat. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
This moment, this is wartime for our democracy. And your Attorney General shouldn't just protect you, she should lead the battle. I developed the...
In a changing world, New Boston has retained its old New England charm. Brian Belanger has lived here just about his entire life, and he's as local as you can get.
It's nice to meet new people, but you build a core of friends and community when you live within that community.
Belanger grew up at his parents' restaurant in town, Andy's Drive-In, learning hard work and the value of a small business.
When the community gets together and they visit the establishments and they actually, they spend money within the town, it makes the town thrive, makes the town bigger, stronger.
Striking out on his own, Belanger went to school to become a commercial diver and eventually launched his own small business career with an excavation and septic service, becoming an everyday working man.
I'm an average guy, I'm one of the people.
His life took a difficult turn a few years ago when he was involved in a car accident that left him with nerve damage and permanent disability.
It's a humbling kind of injury because for the past 3 years, I've been able to work. And you learn that, when I've worked since I was 15 years old, I've had a job. I've had 1 or 2 jobs at any given time. And, you learn when you can't work no more, you got to find something to do.
He says chronic problems with the Social Security disability system have spurred him to activism and action.
I found that the system's failed me. And this is kind of the step that I took when I said to my wife, geez, you know what? I'm going to run for Congress to try and help the administration fix some of the problems that are in Washington because they've just forgotten about myself and you.
In New Boston, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that is Brian Belanger running for Republican CD seat, 2nd District. Now, let's meet Gordon Ballone, Republican candidate for 2nd CD seat. Okay, and there you go on that candidate. Now let's meet Republican Lynn Blankenberger, candidate for CD seat. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Serving as a Navy nurse in Afghanistan, Lynn Blankenbecker had one of the most stressful and essential jobs in the U.S. military, saving the lives of troops critically wounded and being rushed back from the front lines.
When you're in the thick of it, your job is just, you know that that's somebody's son, you know that that's somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's husband, somebody's father, somebody's mother. That person has a loved one back home that's waiting for them.
In 2011 and 2012, Blankenbecker was stationed in Kandahar. Casualties would come in via helicopter, and the medical team would go to work, patching up everyone and everything, from lance corporals to canines.
Our job was to save life, save limb, save sight, and try to get people home as quickly as possible so that they could get to the next level of care.
Blankenbecker began her service in the Air Force. She deployed to Oman and Kuwait in Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. For her, being a nurse is both a calling and an honor.
I tell everybody all the time I have the very best job in the United States military. Being a combat nurse and being able to care for our nation's heroes and our warriors, there's no more rewarding job than being able to do that. That's why I am still wearing my uniform after 32 years.
More recently, Blankenbecker served at the Pentagon, where she saw firsthand the toll taken on military readiness after civilian furloughs triggered by the budget sequester and government shutdowns.
All of those people go home and can't come to work. That's a problem. Imagine if 60% of your workforce couldn't come to work today.
She believes Congress needs a healthy dose of armed forces patriotism.
It doesn't matter what your political leaning is or your religious beliefs. It doesn't matter what your color of your skin or your gender. It doesn't matter for us in the military what uniform you're wearing. All of us come together at the end of the day to do one thing, and that's fight for this nation.
In Concord, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Now let me meet Robert Burns, Republican candidate for 2nd CD seat. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
New Hampshire is steeped in history. When Bob Burns was born, his parents brought him home to his grandmother's house, the former Hillsborough Bank building, right next to the town green, the very heart of this community.
Virtually every major holiday was celebrated here, whether it was Christmases or 4th of July's or Memorial Days. We would come to Amherst to have a barbecue.
From small-town New Hampshire beginnings, Burns now leads a life of international business, advancing the family company, Burns Automation, in markets around the globe.
We work out with solid dosage pharmaceuticals, which is just a fancy way to say tablets. We check the quality control, so we check weight, thickness, diameter, hardness, and content uniformity when the tablets come off the tablet press.
Burns travels a lot to South America, Canada, and here in the States. He speaks Spanish and says he's seen the future of manufacturing overseas.
I think one of the most important things that I've learned is automation. And we don't do a lot of automation in our factories in the United States, particularly compared to Europe. And so when we look at like how high the wages are in Europe, and we wonder, well, how can the Europeans do it? Well, the Europeans do it through automation.
While Burns works internationally, at heart he's still a Granite Stater. And even after weeks in what most of us might consider tropical paradise, believe it or not, he likes coming home to a blast of frigid New England weather.
You know, sometimes, like particularly during the winter, you actually do want to get away from the sun, and you get back and you get hit with that snowstorm, and you really love it, and you go skiing or ice fishing or snowmobiling or whatever, and you're like, wow, this is great.
In Amherst, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Now, let's meet Republican Dr. Stuart Levinson, candidate for CD2. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Stuart Levinson is a doctor, but when he can, he takes off the white coat and puts on the camo to go hunting.
You're just listening to the sounds around you, contemplating where you are, all the pressures are away from you.
Those pressures were greater than ever in 2017. Dr. Levinson was chair of the Department of Medicine at the Manchester VA. He and other doctors at the medical center were trying to improve what they saw as substandard conditions and patient care, and none of the higher-ups seemed to be listening.
The gut feeling is disgust. It's a matter of, I made a promise to those veterans. I made a promise to my employees that I will act in an honorable manner. The patient certainly acted in an honorable manner, and we have to keep our promises to the veterans.
Levinson and his fellow doctors became whistleblowers, taking their story public and triggering a reform process that continues to this day.
I knew I was risking everything being a whistleblower, but to me, that's the definition of integrity. That's what it means to be a leader. So I didn't hesitate. It was just something that had to be done.
Through it all, there was always a refuge in the great outdoors.
That's what we have in New Hampshire. That, believe it or not, there are people who put down the video games, put down the cell phones. It is a connection to your community, a connection to your past, and a connection to your future.
As for Dr. Levinson's future, he has his sights set on Congress and plans to become a whistleblower on Capitol Hill, a place he wants to reform and leave.
You go to Washington, do your job, and go home and go about the rest of your life.
In Hillsborough, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Now, let's meet Steve Newgorn, candidate for a second CD seat. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Ron grew up on Air Force bases. His father, a B-52 in-flight crew chief, served 33 years.
So it really gave me, and informed me about, this country gives you so much that it really is about sacrificing and giving back to her.
Negron's father also played and coached semi-pro baseball, and Steve had boyhood dreams of making it to the big leagues.
It was always in my blood, and I always had this idea of playing ball.
He played in college, but an injury ended his career, so he decided to join the Air Force and became a missileer. During the Cold War, that meant constant vigilance in a nuclear standoff with the Soviets.
We had what was called the launcher status missile indicator panel. You had 10 rows of lights, and each one of those rows of lights equated to one nuclear weapon. And so 2 o'clock in the morning, when you hear the hum of equipment and your motor generator running and you're 23, 24 years old, and you realize the immense responsibility that you had and that everybody else that was out there that you had, really was pretty sobering.
While people may joke these days about going to DEFCON 1, Negron was in charge of weapons capable of ending life on Earth as we know it. If the order came down, he had to be prepared to launch.
The way I did it was, if somebody was going to do something against my family and against my country, then it was my sole responsibility to be able to, in their name and their honor, respond accordingly.
A married father of 3, Negron retired from the Air Force and became a successful businessman. He's proud he and his fellow airmen played a key role in taking down the Soviet Union without firing a shot. He believes the perspective of a cool, calm, and collected nuclear missileer might come in handy on Capitol Hill.
I think it would be a huge benefit to at least bring the notion and the understanding of what the veterans' struggles are to Congress.
In Nashua, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for my pre-primary second CD Republican hopeful takes debate stage right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great night, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this special report. Good night, everyone, and bye.